We who are about to die, salute you!
You think you had a bad day. A Roman general ends up in the arena fighting as a gladiator. A career change that would have most people changing their recruitment agency. A sort of historical epic that was a standout at the time.
You do have a name.
My name is Gladiator.
What we doing live? Echoes in eternity.
Gladiator is about, well, it's on the tip of my tongue. Never mind, it'll come back to me. By the year 2000, historical epics as the basis of a major motion picture had been out of fashion for a while. Well, stories based on actual historical events had done well in the 1990s, as had fantasies. But this sort of faux historical had more in common with sword and sandals movies of the early 60s than it did with Braveheart or Rob Roy. The Roman Empire had long been something that people thought about, whether they studied the era or just cherry-picked the bits that they think allow them to behave badly, or maybe they just really enjoyed whacking each other with a plastic sword at a kid's birthday party. Is attending a toga party at university a valid way to relive the heights of the Roman Empire? Well, it is, but only if the Goths turn up at the end to spoil it. Gladiator is a fictional story that mixes actual historical figures with Russell Crowe's character, Maximus.
At least give me a clean death.
Maximus is a Roman general finishing a war in Germania when the dying Caesar, Marcus Aurelius, appoints Maximus as his replacement over his scheming heir, Commodus.
Or will I be the emperor who gave Rome back her true self?
Maximus, however, is tired of war and intrigue and just wants to return home to Spain to be with his wife and child, where he hopes to make a fortune growing wheat.
A soldier has the advantage of being able to look his enemy in the eye.
Young Commodus, being such an insecure snake, does not take the news at all well, and rather than give his father a gift pack of hot sauce and Old Spice for Father's Day,
As I read the list, I knew I had none of them.
instead smothers him to death and proclaims himself to be Caesar. Maximus is betrayed by Commodus and taken for execution, but Maximus, of course, is too good. He returns to his home to find his wife and child dead, allowing Russell Crowe to get in some good, sad and snotty acting. Actors will dredge up whatever memories they need to summon up the required emotions, so I'm guessing Ridley Scott just asked Russell Crowe how the Rabbitohs were doing that season and kept the camera rolling. Maximus is captured and sold into slavery, where he's soon bought by Proximo, where he's in need of staff for his business, because his business is gladiators. Did not see that one coming.
I did not pay good money for you for your company. I paid it so that I could profit from your death.
I mean, managing gladiators is a tough gig. The staff turnover is very high since benefits are lacking. It's also a health and safety nightmare with serious workplace accidents involving minor cuts, bruises, and yes, death, running at nearly 100%. Also, gladiators tend to have a hard time getting satisfaction from HR, since any meetings with them to discuss a pay rise are always scheduled for after your bout in the arena.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Maximus has revenge on his mind, where he wants to get back to Rome to face Commodus, and being a gladiator seems the best way to do this. Proximo himself was an ex-gladiator and quickly sees Maximus as a star in ascension. The thing about leeching off the earnings of a gladiator, get in quick. Like many ex-gladiators, it's not usually a career that has legs. Proximo is a lovable curmudgeon. Yes, one who profits off human misery, so not all that different from social media. The film also gave Oliver Reed a really strong role late in his career, though no one at the time realised just how late. Maximus meets Juba, played by Djimon Hounsou, who treats Maximus's wounds, and also Hagen, played by Ralph Moller. Once Maximus has proved himself a good fighter, he quickly organises his fellow gladiators so they have a chance of surviving in the tough world of fuck, did you see that? Did I mention Gladiator has a lot of body parts flying off? There's an awful lot of this, and this, and this. It's just like a deli counter at the cannibal supermarket.
It takes an emperor to rule an empire.
So, Commodus is mean and nasty, though we're not really given that much to go on other than Joachin Pheonix being good at this sort of thing. Commodus wants to hold on to power despite his father's wishes of returning Rome to a republic. A cynic might point out that Marcus Aurelius only wanted to transfer power to the people after his own death.
I am dying.
But instead of a return to a Roman republic, the insecure, whiny trust fund kid will do anything to remain Caesar. And he also wants to be a Caesar loved by the people. Commodus clearly has a thing for his sister, Lucilla, who's also apparently the ex of Maximus. Lucilla also has a son, Lucius, who she is trying to shield from her brother's influence. Maximus arrives in Rome, meets Lucius, and then he and his buddy do rather better than expected in the arena.
Gladiator, the Emperor has asked for you.
I'm at the Emperor's service.
Which gives Maximus a chance to deal with Commodus, though Lucius gets in the way. So, he would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for that lousy kid.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius. Father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife.
The crowd are on the side of Maximus, which presents Commodus with a dilemma. He wants Maximus dead, but the crowd love the gladiator. In between the scenes in the arena, there's all the other stuff. Commodus threatening his sister and her son. Various Roman senators scheming either with or against Commodus. And Maximus getting word to his men that they should come to Rome to depose Commodus. There's also no truth to the rumour that Commodus had an unseen nemesis called Falconus, who was last seen at the chariot races at Bathostinium.
I will kill Commodus. The fate of Rome, I leave to you.
This is all leading up to a failed uprising by the gladiators, with Commodus arresting pro-Maximus Senator Gracchus and threatening Lucilla.
Smile for me now, brother.
A final showdown between Commodus and a heavily injured Maximus doesn't go so well for Commodus when his soldiers ignore his orders. Maximus is mortally wounded, but still defeats Commodus. His surviving gladiators will go free, and he will die happy in the knowledge that he'll be with his family in the afterlife. Running through all that wheat, just so long as nobody has a gluten intolerance.
Ambition. That can be a virtue when it drives us to excel.
Gladiator is a film that took some real-life historical figures and mixed in a number of fictional characters. Marcus Aurelius and his two children Lucilla and Commodus were actual Romans, with Aurelius' death happening in 180 AD, just as at the start of the film. But the real Commodus reigned as co-emperor with his father for 3 years and 12 years on his own, where his natural instincts were towards intrigue. The real Commodus also liked to showboat as a gladiator in the arena, and he was actually assassinated by his training partner, the wrestler Narcissus. Now, there's somebody whose Instagram has a lot of self-loving. Also, strange but true, the real Commodus was not the inventor of the Amiga. I checked twice.
You go in the arena and you kill me. And him. And the Nubidian. And the deserter.
The idea for a film about a gladiator was inspired by a book, Those About to Die, which looked at the importance of gladiatorial games to Roman life. Scriptwriter David Franzoni had written Armistead for Steven Spielberg as his first film for DreamWorks, a new studio put together by Spielberg, film executive Jeffrey Katzenberg, and music mogul David Geffen. Franzoni had the idea to turn Those About to Die into a film about a general turned gladiator, though other writers were brought in after Ridley Scott signed on to direct.
I wasn't the best because I killed quickly. I was the best because the crowd loved me.
DreamWorks would then team up with Universal to distribute the film, much in the same way that pancakes often team up with maple syrup, a partnership that in the case of Gladiator worked out well for all concerned. The final script was the result of several writers, and even then it was considered only a rough guide for production, with Russell Crowe and Joachin Pheonix sometimes ad-libbing their lines.
Am I not merciful?
The thing is, Gladiator has okay dialogue, but it's made palatable by a really solid cast. But, you know, you go to a movie called Gladiator to watch action in the arena, and in that regard, the film delivers. But then you have to sit through Commodus being a petty little shit for 15 minutes before more gladiating. Ridley Scott's films almost always have a lot of visual flair, though Gladiator at times, with some overtly flashy imagery, sometimes feels like it's a film from his brother Tony Scott. But fortunately, nothing at all like that made-up hack Diddley Trot. Gladiator was filmed in Morocco, in the UK, and for scenes set in Rome, Malta. The production design on the film is incredible. It's a film where CG enhancement is everywhere, but it's done so well that it's never distracting. The dialogue isn't terrible, but there's often a feeling that so much has been left out that you're really only getting a Cliff Notes version of a potentially fascinating story and characters. There's a build-up to Maximus getting his freedom so he can return with his army to free Rome from Commodus and for the slaves to gain their freedom, and then that's all quickly dealt with so we can have one more go in the arena, which ends with pretty much the same effect. But crucially, they already had the arena set.
Sword! Give me a sword!
Sheathe your sword! Sheathe your sword!
Russell Crowe was born in New Zealand, though he spent a decent part of his childhood in Australia. As a teenager, he released songs in New Zealand as Russ LaRock, which is in no way relevant to Gladiator, other than mentioning this fact is a bit of a wheeze.
And I will have my vengeance. In this life or the next.
He'd been a rising star in Australian movies throughout the 90s, but it was in Hollywood movies such as LA Confidential that he gained a reputation internationally. Gladiator would make him a megastar, even if many of the roles he took subsequently weren't on the level of this film. Danish actress Connie Nielsen gets the thankless role of the love interest but not love interest to both Maximus and, more creepily, her brother Commodus.
Is Rome worth one good man's life?
Where Lucilla spends most of the film as her brother's conscience before he decides, he doesn't need that.
The treachery will not go unpunished.
Poor sister. I wouldn't want to be your enemy.
Joachin Pheonix had appeared in various things throughout the late 80s and 90s, but it was this role that turned him from the brother of River Phoenix to a star in his own right.
If they lie to me, they don't respect me. If they don't respect me, how can they ever love me?
We also had good roles for character actors like the omnipresent Tommy Flanagan as Maximus's loyal squire Cicero, plus some good gigs for veterans like Richard Harris, David Hemmings, I, Claudia star Derek Jacobi, and Oliver Reed in what turned out to be his last role.
We mortals are but shadows and dust.
And unfortunately, Reed had died before finishing his scenes. A few shots of body doubles and some subtle computer enhancement allowed Reed's character to appear in the film's climax.
I could always tell when you were lying because you were never any good at it.
I never acquired your comfort with it.
True.
Gladiator had a score from Hans Zimmer and Lisa Gerrard, though like a lot of Zimmer's scores of the era, it sounds like a lot of other Zimmer scores of the era, where either he or his proteges and assistants scored many of the big action films of the late 90s and early 2000s. There's a lot that's epic about the score, but also epically familiar. So familiar that he was sued for the soundtrack's similarities to the works of Gustav Holst. Honestly, parts of Gladiator's score may sound familiar even if you've never even seen the movie before.
You like movies about gladiators?
Ridley Scott as a director rarely makes bad films, but his good ones are really good, and occasionally they're major hits. Gladiator was a major hit when it was released in May of 2000, becoming the second biggest film of the year after Mission Impossible 2. 2000 wasn't my favourite year for movies, which is why it seemed no surprise when a film like Gladiator earned Academy Awards for Best Picture and Best Actor for Russell Crowe.
I will give them something they've never seen before.
As well as awards for sound effects and costumes, which of course were mostly well deserved. And as was the fashion at the time, an extended cut was created for a DVD release, which adds a teeny bit more context regarding Commodus and the Senate. So the question is, which version is definitive? Ridley Scott recorded an introduction to the extended cut, which looks partly like a hostage video, where the director basically throws the extended cut you're about to watch under a bus by telling viewers that the theatrical version released in cinemas was his director's cut. So that's what I looked at for this review. They say all roads lead to Rome, which, if true, would make orienteering an even duller sport. Gladiator is about somebody who wanted to get away from Rome, who became somebody who wanted to get to Rome, but then wanted to get away from Rome so he could come back to Rome. Rome if you want to, Rome around the world. Rome if you want to, without anything but the love we feel.
The whole of Rome would be laughing at him.
Gladiator can often be compared to Stanley Kubrick's 1960 film Spartacus, though while the two have superficial similarities, Gladiator basically sticks to gladiating, with everything else subservient to getting as quickly as possible back to the arena. I wonder what is happening back in the arena. Gladiator was influential. It was the sort of thing you'd see referenced quite a bit.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.
Oh, he's fucking obsessed with Gladiator.
Plus, it did provide the impetus for a minor resurgence of sword and sandal movies and TV series, things like Troy or 300, and on television, Rome, and a TV version of Spartacus. I didn't particularly love Gladiator at the time. I felt it was a relatively shallow film outside of the action, which was fantastic.
They will applaud and love you for that.
Now, you might be thinking, surely that's all you need, to which I would say, sure, and also while you're at it, perhaps tie some roller skates to your knuckles to avoid scraping.
But I have other virtues.
Rewatching now, yeah, it's dated relatively well and even inspired a belated sequel. The fight scenes are still great, But yes, the bits in between the fights seem like they're telling you the absolute bare minimum to avoid people walking out of the theatre.
Gladiators, I salute you.
Gladiator made a ton of money. It reinvigorated the career of a veteran director who would now release films much more regularly, and it made Russell Crowe a huge star. It also probably did no harm to the sales of plastic swords either. Oh, that's smart. If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.